Or do you want to enter this one?
No, you got it.
I like backup plans. Redundancy, man. That's my game.
Yeah.
I gave my wife 2 rings when I asked her to marry me.
I gave her 2 rings.
Oh, it's like if I have one, I should probably have 2. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Future podcast. It's the end of the year, and Sandesh and I are here to do our annual end of the year wrap up. A lot of interesting developments this year, Sandesh.
Oh, yeah.
Just from this channel alone has grown massively. I think this year is the year of massive growth for this channel. I mean, in terms of just views, we just skyrocketed the number of views that we get each month. We got a ton of subs this year. So there's a couple things we're working on here still. This channel is more popular as video than it has been as audio, which is odd because everybody in the audio podcast world is saying, oh my God, it's so hard to get going on YouTube, but we're actually struggling on the other side where we're not getting enough listens on the audio side. So we've been spending a little bit more time, trying to spread the word on that side. If you want, we're available on any of the major podcast services, everywhere from Apple Podcasts to Spotify and everything in between. So go check that out. But also, if you want, go check on our website. There's actually a podcast links section on the website, and you can find all the audio podcasts and find your favorite and go there. Or you can just go to our Buzzsprout one, where I'll put the link down here. And the other thing I want to point out is our merch store. We got just lots of cool merch.
Yeah.
You got your merch.
Yeah.
We got really cool mugs, and we got hats.
Hats. Oh yeah, dude. I'm a big fan of this hat. Big fan of this hat.
I like the hats. The hats are good.
And my tea every day. It's right here in my footer. I'm a huge fan of this one. I really like it.
Yeah, you got the one with this one's the older version that doesn't have the URL on it. You got the new version.
Yeah, well,
it's got the URL on it. So if you're looking for gifts, I recommend these as Valentine's Day gifts, because those are really. I mean, what could be more romantic?
Totally.
It's like, here, honey, have a Future mug.
What's Fudder TV?
So Sandesh, tell me a little bit about like some of the things that got you excited this year.
It's interesting. Every year, I think we continue to learn more, and good
Big
things
time.
happen, bad things happen. The world just kind of gives you a shit sandwich sometimes. It's going to happen every year. Just like I can't believe that there's a war going on in a different country right now. You know what I mean? All these kinds of things are just kind of nuts to me. But I think personally, I've grown a lot. I've been doing a lot of that Enneagram workshop stuff, and with my yogi Bhakti yogi Hari.
I recommend everybody check out the podcast that we did on that.
Yes.
Which was 2 Monks and a Banker, episode number 79.
That framework has really helped me more understand myself. And so what I think some of those things have, the outcome of it has been, I forgive myself more. I don't beat myself up about stuff as much as I used to, or take stuff as serious as I used to. Just trying to have a different perspective on, what's going on, just in life, right? And so that, for me, that has been like just the best outcome for me. I just feel like now, as a parent and everything else, I feel a little more armed with like the tools that I need to make sure that I get done what I need to get done in my life, so really reprioritizing things. I think a lot of people are doing this. There are just some things that I'm just not doing anymore.
This year I became more in tune with, like my and the people around me's, psychological needs, and just like I came to a better understanding of like what drives and motivates not only me, but, people around me and just people I see on the street, I mean, we all laugh about these Karen videos, but, like I look at these and I see just, people in mental health crises.
Totally.
And, it's not funny. anymore.
No.
Like you see people who are like, something's not right, and they're really struggling in a very, very bad way, and are eliciting terrible behavior. Now, some of them are just straight up jackasses, and
Yeah, absolutely.
there's no hope for them, probably.
No.
But there are some that are just.
But
like,
the mental health thing is real, as my wife
Yeah.
works in that space, and it's sad, it's humbling, it's just so many emotions.
Not enough of it to go around.
No, it's not, and it's the new world, and people are struggling with it. I see it around everybody, even myself. So no one's immune to it.
We encounter so many people in this industry that are struggling, and just not understanding that they're struggling, and not understanding that they can and should go get help, right?
Yeah.
I just encourage anybody who's just not feeling constantly depressed, anxious, stressed out, whatever, just like there are ways to help.
If we aren't healthy mentally, then we can't live our lives. You know what I mean? For me, one of the things that I've been doing now is routinely every morning I just meditate. It's become part of my practice, and that's been a huge help. I mean, if anyone is looking into meditation, it takes a while. You don't even know if you're doing it right. It's like breathe in, breathe out. Pay attention to your breath. And it's so hard because after 30 seconds, your brain starts going into all these different places. And so that's been something that I'm really, really interested in, is like how my brain works and all these thoughts that come into it, like so randomly, and like, why am I having those kinds of thoughts? Like, I don't get it. Like, it has no purpose here. I
know, right?
It's weird how the human brain works. We should make a point.
Well, I get a lot of that with music too. That drives me nuts. I'm like I got the devil's jukebox in my head, and it just won't stop. And sometimes it's a chicken dance, and sometimes it's something, good, but it's always something.
Since I know you, that doesn't surprise me, by the way. I finally got a chance to see you perform with Adam.
Right. We got the band got back together.
Yep, dressed up as hot dogs. That was awesome.
We had some really interesting podcasts this year too. I think, for me, one of the things that I thought was really cool is that, we always talk about like ultimately the goal is, cool people, talking to cool people who are doing cool stuff, right? And I think we did a lot more of that this year, which is really interesting because we kind of, stretched our wings a little bit, and we talked to people who, don't, fall into that sort of topic bucket that we've, historically fallen into. I mean, we had, topics on like disinformation and Ukraine, and we talked to, every other podcasters. We talked to like Modern CTO. We talked to Kira Deneen, Donna Laughlin. We talked to Landon Campbell.
Yeah, that dude was cool.
And that was really fun to just like, compare notes about how things are going. And then I think we talked to some, like more consumer oriented things too, like everybody from Parcel Labs, talking about like kind of back end, that's more back end shipping stuff. But, we talked to like, Ghostery and, like people doing that stuff. We talked to authors like Sophie Teen, we had lots of interesting conversation. We even talked to famous actors' parents this year with the Patels, Ravi Patel's parents, which Geeta and Ravi Patel's parents, I should say, because Geeta is probably equally famous at this point as Ravi with all her directing that's happening on the new Game of Thrones series.
I think the dad is stealing the show.
The parents may be the real stars. Yeah, I agree. That was episode 83. So if you get a chance, you should check that one out because that's a fun one.
They're great people.
They're my spirit people. Yeah. So good stuff. I mean, what were your thoughts about all that?
What I love about what we're doing here is it's given me a chance to learn about, for me personally, learn about so many things. But what's interesting is when somebody reaches out and says, "Hey, I think I have a guest for your show," and then we research them and their company or the person. We are, like you said, we're going into places where we never really thought that we would go. It's just the journey has taken us there and opened up some of these doors. So it's like, why not talk about drones? Drones are cool.
That was a really one of the most popular podcasts this year when we talked to Propeller.
To talk about disinformation, which, we're not a political channel by any means, but just to talk about like, what is it, and to educate people. And I guess that's what's really exciting is when people do tune in and they have a positive experience, and then to just get that feedback. It's just so awesome because it kind of, I think it motivates us to keep going and keep going, like that's, it's like, oh my God, somebody's listening.
Yeah, totally.
So those are I know for me, those are the highlights. I'm just super excited about just where we're at. Cause I think as much as we've had a growth year in 22, I think 23 and beyond, we're going to be on a different trajectory just because compound interest, man. If we keep putting in the time on this, like that, talking to all the entrepreneurs that you and I talk to, right? It takes a long time to build something. Sure does. You can have an idea, but to actually make it a reality.
And like Kyle Roof said too, it's like it's not enough to just build something great and make good content or whatever. You actually got to get out there and you make people notice you. And that we haven't aired that podcast yet, but by the time this one's out, that'll be out. Marketing and that's been a big thing for me is just like to really figure out how all the marketing stuff works. And, we expanded into lots of different areas too. I mean, like, cause now we're posting stuff on Instagram and TikTok, I think we're done with Twitter, but we got Mastodon now. So we really did that. And we got involved with a lot of different organizations like the Podcast Academy. We entered, some awards shows. We're in the Ambies for the Podcast Academy, but I don't think that we're going to really compete with the problem with Jon Stewart and
John
Planet
Rogan
Money.
Guy. I heard the John Rogan
Joe
guy
Rogan
gets quite a few.
Those guys kind of tend to dominate things. So I think our little podcast probably is not going to get the kind of notice that we would want for
doubt.
that. But it's still cool because we're meeting a lot of cool people. We're getting to know other people who are in the same boat and sharing some experiences and learning from all that. And hopefully, I hope we can do more collaborations. Next year.
Well, here's the interesting part about what you just said, and I have learned this year is not a lot of people have figured this out. This isn't a problem that everyone knows an answer to. Is how do you promote your channel? It seems like there's a lot of fits and starts. You try something, you see if it works. If it doesn't, you fail fast, you move on. But if it works, then you double down on it, and then you go with it. And it's interesting, even the content that you and I have been creating, sometimes I watch, I'm like, wow, this is going to be amazing. I think people are going to love this. And it doesn't get the viewership. And so it makes me think like, what's wrong with it? What do we need to do? And it's nice to talk to other people because you can learn that.
One of the things I've noticed is that certain topics that are perhaps a little more controversial, you can just see in the numbers that they don't get the kind of rankings that you would think. And it's not everything, because controversy obviously sells views on YouTube, but certain things have become such trigger words, they're sort of downranking. Like you can't advertise against certain words. And I'm not going to mention them in this podcast.
Yeah, I know.
Because I know exactly what happens when you mention it. So, you do have to censor yourself a little bit to avoid some of those problems. Yeah, you can talk about it. It's just you won't have the kind of easy reach that you'd like.
No doubt.
I'm looking forward to doing a lot more cool stuff. I think we've got. I was looking at our schedule lineup. We've got like 20 different podcasts in the works presently for next year, which is really exciting. I mean, we just shot 2 this week, and we got another one next week that we're shooting that all for next year's content. And so there's stuff in the can already, a few things in the can already for next year, and there's just a lot of stuff lined up already for next year, which is really exciting. Some really cool topics too. We did a lot on employment too, which was cool, but we also talked about like pharmacy stuff, like direct healthcare kind of things too. That was cool.
Yeah,
Durex.
A lot of people can identify with that pain. the cost of medicine.
Yeah, and I just saw an ad
crazy.
for Blue Cross Blue Shield or something, was like talking about how there's a zero fee insulin thing they're doing now, which I hope that's true, because that's amazing advancement.
Right. Oh yeah.
Insulin drives me nuts because it was, the guy who invented it, released the patent to the public because he didn't want people to have to pay for, life-saving medicine. But yet here we are with really high costs of insulin. So
there's some real shitty people in this world, man. And
that is true. That is true.
And maybe it's just because of social media and everything else, but I don't know what it is, but I'm definitely recognizing it more and more. I don't know if I hope it's not a trend, but I think it is. That's one of the other things, kind of a reality, dude, is the industry that you and I are in, tech, high technology. We're going through a massive change. Not only are customers changing the way that they operate and do business, there's new threats that are coming into our world right now. Companies are all trying to adapt and change to what the future is going to be. And so now everyone's going through change. And then in the middle of a financial year that has a lot of uncertainty, and especially going into 23 too, right? It's like people have to learn new skills. There's so many things going on here.
I think the other thing too is like the idea of content marketing and account-based marketing and people getting the word out individually and selling their own personal brand. I think that's been a huge thing this year. I mean, how many people have started podcasts and,
absolutely.
It's crazy. And I think the thing that's interesting is YouTube now getting into podcasts, and all the people in, sort of the audio podcast world are like now getting ready to move into the YouTube side of it. And we're kind of already here. So that's kind of nice, but we're seeing a big shift of people into the YouTube space. And you got to think, considering the amount of content and, reach that YouTube has, that's going to be a really dominant platform, going forward. So that'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out.
At the end of the day, it's an attention economy right now,
Absolutely.
And if you make it a video and someone can just watch, it is a way better experience for the user.
And for businesses, you can't, there's the trade shows are dying on the vine. You got, totally. There's just like, people aren't even coming into the office anymore. So it's like getting together and having a meeting on site is really challenging, so it's like, these kind of like view on demand or listen on demand kind of options are really good for, like getting your message out.
I want to kind of go back to something you just said, which was, less and less people are going to these conferences and things of that nature, right?
Well, except for AWS, I guess.
Right, except for AWS. Well, unfair.
Yeah.
Even though from a health situation, and when people were worried about getting sick, that was what people were really worried about. Those things have kind of alleviated a little bit. There's no mask requirements. People are going out more. Travel has been back. I mean, for the most part, right? Of course, it hasn't
except
been
for Southwest.
Yeah, except for Southwest. And just, other people have, other states and whatever, they have different, rules, and that is what it is. But even with all of that, what I find amazing is customers still chose not to go.
Yeah.
Even though it was available for them, right? So I think this is going to be a little bit more of that new normal of,
yeah, I agree,
people reprioritizing their life and their time and saying, do I really want to go to Vegas for 4 days for this conference and like be away from my family and just deal with all this nonsense, or can I just be at home?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's definitely happening.
You can probably guess which version I like. I like the stay-at-home version.
We used to travel so much. I mean, I think we travel a little too, not enough right now. Yeah. But I just don't miss all that travel. I do miss the status on the airlines.
But it's also where you and I are in our personal lives. Our kids are at that age where I want to be home. Once all three of them are gone, I'll be more than happy to get on a flight and go somewhere and go see some
totally.
Yeah.
Well, and I still maintain my platinum status in Bonvoy, so
nice.
That helps because we're going to Malta this year, so that's going to be exciting.
Oh, nice.
For those who don't know, my wife is her mother's from Malta, so she's half Maltese, and we're taking the kids there, going back to the homeland.
Cool. Awesome.
What do you see as, kind of the big things for next year? And my daughter graduating high school, who thought that day would ever happen?
Your daughter. I mean, that's a big one.
How did I get that old?
That's big. That is big.
That is big. And she's going to be, off to college and all that.
Yeah.
I'm going to miss her. It's just like, it's kind of weird.
It's like everyone says, man, life is short. And
it is. It goes by so fast. It's crazy.
When I was younger, like all these aunts would just come up to you and just grab your cheeks, like pinch it and be like, I used to play with you when you were younger. Do you know who I am? Like, do you know what my name is? Do you know me? Right? And it would hurt. And when you didn't know the answer, you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't remember. You get a big slap on the back, and it wasn't like a light one.
Next time you better remember.
Yeah, totally. But that's what's starting to happen is that I am now the uncle that is going to these kids and being like, I was there when you were born and now you're this big, like I was there,
So what do you think for topics of next year? I mean, I think there's a lot of, things that are just popping right now. Crypto's a big one. I'm giving the thumbs down on crypto.
Yeah.
It just seems like almost everything is a scam. And I don't see, people talk about Web3. I just don't see the sustainability of that, like using blockchain. I just don't know that. I think there's other ways to achieve a lot of those goals without doing something so incredibly resource intensive.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, one of the other things that's really going to be discussed a lot next year is AI. I mean, ChatGPT is like blown everything up. But I do think, here's my take on it. Like, while I think ChatGPT is absolutely amazing. Mm-hmm. I think, like when I was poking around and you could see the edges of it, mm-hmm. And I think if you recall, like, when we watched Star Wars, it was like, oh my God, this is what it must be like to be in space. It's so, and then you look back on those special effects now and you're like, oh, that's a little janky,
Yeah.
There's some stuff in there that's, and you're like, and then you got the, the great CGI in some of the later movies, and you look back and you go like, oh my God, that CGI is not that good,
right?
Because you start to get used to what those things produce, and you kind of start to see that uncanny valley, and I think AI is going to function in the same way. Like initially when we see it, it's going to be like, oh my God, this thing can do so much stuff and it can answer so many things. But we're going to start to, like recognize the patterns in how that mm-hmm. behaves. And I think it's going to be very obvious, at some point, like what is AI and what isn't AI. Mm-hmm. We'll see. I mean, maybe it'll advance faster than we can keep up, but we are great pattern matching machines. So, like seeing those kinds of patterns.
It's no different. You and I are from the same generation. Growing up when we were younger, when we had the VHS tapes, that went away quick. The rotary dial phones, that went away quick. Cell phones came. Cell phones with cameras on it came. I mean, there's just been
and every time you think this is just amazing. It's just like perfect.
Exactly.
It's so perfect. And then like 2 years later, you're like, this sucks.
Exactly. And I think, but that pace of innovation continues to grow and grow and grow. And so I think we are going to see cool shit faster than we have before. It's just the development is there, the technology is there, the people need to catch up to it, but we will be able to develop all these great technologies. It's just that at what cost?
Well, yeah, and I think we've seen some of the limits of some of these things because we initially Tesla came out with their autonomous driving stuff, and it turned out to not quite be there.
Mm-hmm, right.
I mean, there's a lot of promise around a lot of these technologies, and then actually when push came to shove, it didn't quite pan out all the way.
But dude, being in IT, haven't we always seen that?
Absolutely.
You see this.
It takes a while for it to really get good enough. It's not something that happens overnight.
And I think less and less trends make it. To market these trends is easy. Get a bunch of companies that are developing in that market. All of a sudden, they're pitching it. It's like cloud. Well, if you don't have a cloud story, you're out. Even early on with the cloud journey, everyone was just getting on board, even though you and I knew that the journey wasn't going to be what these customers thought that it was going to be.
Right.
Because you and I knew exactly what the real truth was. It doesn't matter. The perception of the market was what it is. It's like, and if you're not doing it, you're out,
Yeah.
So I think that's going to, continue.
Peak of inflated expectations and then into the trough of disillusionment.
That's right.
As Gartner would say.
What are some of the big things that you're expecting this year?
AI is going to do some really interesting things, particularly on the imaging side. I think, when you look at what's happening in that space, there's some really compelling stuff that's going down. But again, I think there's limits to how good that is. But I'll tell you some of the things that like I do for my stuff that like I use AI to, like clip out backgrounds and things like that. And it does it so well and so fast. I think there's just an enormous value in those things. I think those things are just going to continue to get just better and better and that. And I think there's just like ChatGPT reveals just some amazing like simple tasks that can. I was watching a guy who worked at a hotel and he's like, all I do all day is like write emails to people, like customer complaints, thank yous, notices to the thing. He's like, I started putting this into ChatGPT and ChatGPT like started churning out all these letters for me. And he's like, it's going to save me so much time. And I could see like things like that are just kind of really mundane tasks. It's like you turn it over.
And that's just scratching the surface.
And it can knock that stuff out. And, and I think there's going to be a lot of value.
And there's a lot that you can knock out. There's
or get you 90% of the way there. And like in the audio side of things, there's a lot of AI tools now, and it'll listen and sample things, and then sort of create like a plug-in chain of things of like here's adjustments you should make. Yeah. It's never right 100%, but it's like 80% of the way there. Gives you a good starting point, what you need, and then you kind of adjust from there. But that saves you an enormous amount of time, and I think that's where we're going to see AI, like really, really going. I'm really curious to see like what happens to the social media landscape this year. I mean, I think Musk's decimation of Twitter is just amazing, and I'm interested in the rise of Mastodon because I do like these federated, distributed, options, because I think that's the best way to give people what they want on a local level, but on a broader level, like wrap some rules around it. And I think the one thing that this free speech debate is very interesting to me, because I think people really don't understand free speech, because they think that just like a platform that accepts any kind of intolerant speech is like, oh, that's free speech. But intolerant speech can be free speech limiting. Like I'm not on Facebook anymore because Facebook just got so toxic. I don't feel like I could have a voice on Facebook because it's just such a toxic platform. Twitter became the same way. You can't I can't, and like even YouTube, like there's some YouTubers that I love and I want to comment on their videos, but I don't comment on their videos because the platform's so overrun with just the haters and just toxic people that you can't engage in any conversation. So it's like, is that free speech? I don't feel like my free speech is being respected. I think it's sort of like democracy, without a constitution is just mob rule ultimately, right? And I think, free speech without moderation is much the same way. If you don't have moderation, that's appropriate to keep people civil and allow for a variety of voices to speak, then you can't really have free speach. There's one great platform I love, and because I'm into guitars, there's TDPRI. It's Tele Discussion Page Reissue, which is kind of a guitar thing. But they have like very specific set rules about what you can talk about, what you can't talk about, and the way you can talk about it. And it allows everybody to participate in the conversation, and it's like it's a very civil forum, and I like things like that. I'm curious to see how that all shakes out next year, because I think, especially when you introduce all this AI stuff, it's just going to be none of that. It's the noisy neighbor problem. Nothing's going to be usable anymore.
Yeah, no, I get it. Exactly. Then that's what I'm saying is like AI and technology innovation is awesome, but at the same time, at what cost?
Right.
What are we going to sacrifice and give up? Because some of these things are big. We're making huge sacrifices here.
And the other thing I'm really interested in is seeing what comes out of the James Webb Space Telescope. That is just,
I know.
That's really geeky, fun stuff.
And again, I think there's just going to be more and more of that kind of stuff.
I'm excited about what we accomplished this year. I'm excited about next year.
I hope everyone has a great 2023. It's going to have its ups and downs.
I'm going to get a haircut because I need one. It's time.
I know, so do I.
That's going to be my big ambition for the new year at this point.
I know, I got to get a haircut too.
All right, everybody, get out there and get a haircut. But before you do that, click on that subscribe button because that helps the channel a ton, and it really, really is awesome. Right, Sandesh?
Oh yeah, big time.
How excited am I when we get subs coming in?
Oh God, it's each of you. We celebrate each of you.
If we could give each of you a big kiss, we would certainly do it. It'd probably land us in jail, but that's all right.
Yeah.
It's worth it for the subs.
But I'm still going to bed at 10. Either way, the kiss or no
midnight.
kiss, I'm going
I'll
to
let
bed.
you know what happens. Here's a funny thing about Chicago. Chicago doesn't have like a real, like proper New Year's ball drop or anything. You get New York at 11, and then after that, you get these like weird shows on local stations where like everybody is drunk out of their minds on TV, and they're not making any sense anymore, and they're just
that's some great reality TV though. You just record that. I'm not staying up for it, but I will record it just to watch it. That would be
it's a train wreck every year. We should end our train wreck and let everybody celebrate a happy new year.
Sounds great.
See y'all in 2023.